Hello and welcome to the Temple of Tomes with your host, Indie Comics Jones. Today is November 30th, 2020, and this is episode 144. Today we're going to take a look at White Widow number 5 from Absolute Comics Group's AGC, I guess, $4.99. And this is ages 13 and up. Now, the reason I'm starting on number 5 is because this is a tie-in to this comic, I Make Boys Cry, and they mentioned that, and this is a number 1. We'll be doing this one next. We'll do a review on this one next, but they mentioned in this that it really helps if you read number 5 first before you read this number 1. So I went out and got number 5. Now I've got a friend that really likes this White Widow character. I thought it looked okay. Obviously, the cover is very sexy and very well drawn. The interior art isn't quite the same, but the women in here, for the most part, are drawn very well, with one exception. A very nice pose here. She's on the Chrysler Building, if you can figure that out. So it must be New York's. But anyway, she's taking a phone call or something there, and she doesn't like what she sees on the screen. Okay, let's get into this real quick. One of the things, this is a $4.99 comic, like I mentioned before, so it's a little pricier than most. It is 24 full pages, and I consider this like a full page. So that's good. You get a little extra than the 20 page. But what's also nice about this, they did a really nice job of giving you a summary of the first 4 issues right here on this side. So you have White Widow number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4, and you can see all the covers are pretty nice. I believe they did have variant covers for all of these, and my comic book shop owner at 2011 Comics, he seemed to think this was a pretty popular comic for something that's being fairly new and not one of the big 4 or 5 publishers out there. So the name of this, ironically enough, this arc is I Make Boys Cry, so it goes right into that other one that was a number 1. This White Widow is created by, I hope I can read this, it looks like Jamie Tyndall and Benny Powell. Benny R. Powell did the story and letters. Iwan Nazis did the pencils and inks. And James Brown is on the colors. So yeah, it's drawn pretty well. The style is pretty strong. The coloring, this is a really high quality paper they're using on here. As far as the cover is good stock. It's not like the cheap Marvel that you're seeing out there. And basically what we're seeing here, her backstory on White Widow is that she was a little girl that was born with a degenerative disease, and in order to keep her alive long enough, her father, who was a scientist, injected her with some White Widow DNA, and that just helped her move along. Now, she got to a certain age, I think she's a high schooler, and suddenly she gets a nosebleed and she passes out, and they rush her to the hospital, and she's actually dying at that point. The White Widow DNA was giving up, so her father stole some formula from a place that he had been working at, a secret lab, and injected her just before he was killed, and he put a super formula in that reacts with the White Widow DNA. So she's got all kinds of different superpowers. She doesn't act exactly like a Spider-Man or Spider-Woman. She doesn't seem to shoot webs as much as she seems to create things. Like here, she thought about this spider drone and she created a spider drone. Now, when I talked about there was one woman in here that wasn't drawn particularly well, I mean her friend Regina. And it's kind of a trope going on in comics right now, but there's a thing going on where they're making black women not very attractive. I'm reading one of the main characters in Big Girls. It looks like a linebacker. In Engine Ward, one of the main characters, she looks more like a tailback maybe. Very mannish, those characters. And if you've seen Commanders in Crisis, #2, there's actually two poorly drawn black women, just freaky looking. So I'm not sure what's going on with drawing black women, if they're trying to be inclusive and they don't know how to draw them, or they think this is stereotypical. But don't worry, because she does know the science, and we get a lot of looks at her here. And I mean, maybe someone's into this kind of look, but I don't find it particularly appealing. Whereas White Widow is very cute, and these are supposed to be kind of the same age. And so anyway, they figure out there's a symbol on White Widow's costume that is part of a hint or a clue to what happened to her father, why he was being hunted down. And we can see it looks like Regina's got like a midriff on here too. Look at that face. Wow. But anyway, she's kind of a science sleuth, so she's figured out, like, she's tracked down this signal on White Widow's costume to an all-girls school in Chicago. And there you can see the symbol. It's like kind of a crest, and I'm not sure where she's finding this crest from on the costume, but it's there apparently. So in the meantime, while she's there, Blood Widow and Recluse are going through White Widow's father's house, just ripping it to shreds. And at this point, it looks very like a lot of Asian decor in there. So I don't know if White Widow is part Asian or not. Not sure what's going on with that, because I did not read the first 4 issues. So they're not really finding too much, but then they do find the safe. And I can't remember if they come back. We'll see if they come back again. In the meantime, since White Widow has figured out she's got this special power of creating things just by thinking of it, but she needs materials to do that as well, she goes to a junkyard and purchases 2 motorcycle tires, and she places up against a bunch of junk, and she starts to think, and her eyes glow red, and she's able to create this awesome looking motorcycle out of nothing. Something she had pictured in her head from a prototype she'd seen before. And so she's off. She's back in costume, and she is off to find this girls' school to find out what the possible clues there. And Regina stays behind. White Widow is fearing for Regina's life because it seems like all her friends are being followed or targeted. She doesn't want her to get wrapped up in this. So off White Widow goes to Chicago, and you can see the drawing is pretty nice in here overall. She goes into the all-girls school. She kind of gets blown off when she's asking if she can see someone. They say, we're not admitting anybody right now. And so she goes back at night, climbs the fence, and she's attacked by 3 or 4 girls that go to the school, and we get to know some of these other ones. One's named Slice. Well, this is the one with the swords here. I can't remember what the other ones are named. Oh, this one's Locust, and trying to read this. I can't read it. But and then we have the sniper girl too. So White Widow has to battle all these different women, girls, I guess. I don't know. They're high schoolers, female high schoolers, and they all have a different particular expertise in combat. So she does pretty well, staves off, and when they get to the end, it's just kind of like, after nice fighting poses and all these different weapons shown off, they just kind of stop. Just say, I guess that's kind of, they suddenly, okay, I've got your respect now. And they just kind of calmly talk, and she says, well, I've got this symbol. This is what brought me here. They think she's trying to rob the school, and he's like, no. And she says, and then suddenly these 4 women that were trying to maim her are suddenly her bestie friends. So this is continued in Make Boys Cry #1, even though the name of this arc is Make Boys. I know it doesn't make any sense, but that's what we're going with it. So the story wasn't too bad. I mean, I would recommend it if you like kind of cheesy girl comics, things that are well done. And we can take a look what's coming up the next regular issue of White Widow. And this would be White Widow #6. And you can see the variant covers and whatnot. White Widow #6. And then there's a part 2 of Darkon, which I don't know if that's going to, I believe that's going to branch off of part 1 and #6. I believe. What's his #3? So I don't know what's going on with them. But Absolute Comics Group is planning on a big explosion of comics all at once. We can go into this next thing. You can see some, this just ends here. You can see a few more here. I think it's the other book has a lot more. And we'll go into it. But you can see some of the other titles are coming out with here. They got White Widow. They've got Darkon. They've got Monster Isle. They have First Defense. They have I Make Boys Cry, and that's the #2 issue, which will be coming out, I guess, next month maybe. And Wayward Legends, and they're saying, and this is just the beginning. So they're pushing a new publisher here, basically, and I'm pretty sure these guys are pretty new. So all in all, I recommend it just for a fun comic to read. You won't get much more than that. It's just a lot of kind of nerd vonic. So anyway, thanks for stopping by and listening to me rant and rave about this review here. And as always, I appreciate you stopping by. Please like, please subscribe, please leave comments. Tell me what you liked, tell me what you didn't like. Tell me if you disagreed with this, if you read this and you loved it or hated it or whatever. I'd like to hear from you. And as always, this is Indie Comics Jones from the Temple of Tomes bidding you adieu.